Marcus Hale hustled through dawn traffic, a black father in his mid-30s balancing IT tickets at Voss Tech and soccer practices for his 10-year-old son Jaden. Across the skyline, Elena Voss ruled from her glass tower, a CEO whose empire masked a hollow core. A frantic laptop crash summoned Marcus to the 50th floor, marble halls echoing with whispering aides, air thick with power. He knelt at her desk, toolkit clinking, when the screen glitched alive, her beach photo, windswept hair framing a genuine laugh from her pre-power days. Elena's eyes narrowed. "What do you see?" Marcus paused, hands still on keyboard, meeting her steel gaze. "Freedom," he said softly. "Joy you buried under boardrooms." Her armor cracked, a flicker of raw vulnerability, before she regained poise. He gathered his tools and left, but her gaze lingered on the closing door, the photo still glowing. From that morning on, Marcus Hale stopped being just the IT guy. Within a week, an email he never expected pulled him into the center of Elena Voss's world, reassigned to executive technology oversight on the 50th floor. On paper it was a promotion. In real life it was a collision. Her emergencies rarely respected school hours. Her late-night deadlines did not care that a 10-year-old boy named Jaden waited at home with half-finished homework and cold leftovers on the table. Every time Marcus's phone buzzed with Elena's name past sunset, another part of his carefully balanced life tipped. He would fix a server crash at her command, then race through dim parking lots, praying he wasn't too late to tuck his son in. Elena noticed the speed of his work long before she noticed the shadows under his eyes. To her, he was the man who made problems disappear. To himself, he was starting to feel like one more machine she expected to run without rest. But in the quiet moments, between board meetings and system patches, she caught fragments. The way his voice softened when he answered a call from Jaden. The way his whole face changed when he mentioned a science project or a missed soccer game, or a school email that began with, "We need to talk." For the first time in years, Elena found herself wondering what it meant that the most honest person in her life was the man who fixed her laptop. The turning point came on a night the building was almost empty. The cleaners had already passed through. The offices were dark except for the soft glow of two screens on the 50th floor, hers and his. A glitch in the financial system pulled Marcus back after hours. Elena stayed, arms folded, pretending she was only there to supervise the fix. But the silence between them felt too heavy to be about numbers alone. "Do you ever get tired of being the one everyone depends on?" Marcus asked without looking up. He hadn't meant to say it out loud. The words slipped out from the part of him that was exhausted, of being strong, of never dropping anything, of never being allowed to fall apart. Elena didn't answer at first. She stared at the reflection of herself in the dark window, the flawless suit, the perfect posture, the eyes that hadn't known real rest in years. "When I started this company," she said finally, voice lower than he'd ever heard it, "I thought success would make the loneliness worth it." She told him about the partner who stole her idea, the friends who disappeared when the money appeared, the love that left when the work never did. Marcus shut the laptop lid for a moment, letting the room go dark except for the city lights outside. He told her about a hospital room that smelled like antiseptic and fear. About holding his wife's hand and promising their newborn son that everything would be okay, even as the monitors went still. In the quiet that followed, they were no longer CEO and technician. They were just two people who had lost too much, standing on different sides of the same invisible grief. That night, when Marcus finally went home, he dreamed of the beach photo again. Except this time, Elena wasn't alone. In his dream, she stood barefoot in the sand, hair wild in the wind, with a small boy laughing beside her. And for the first time he wondered if the picture on her screen was less about who she had been, and more about who she still wanted to be. The closer Marcus and Elena drifted toward honesty, the more the world around them sharpened its knives. The first cut came through numbers. A major deal, months in the making, collapsed overnight under the weight of a technical failure. Files were missing. Timelines were wrong. And on paper, every error pointed straight to Marcus Hale. Whispers spread faster than facts. In hushed corners and closed group chats, one phrase repeated, "The new guy on the 50th floor messed up." For Elena, the damage was more than financial. Investors questioned her judgment. Board members circled like vultures, asking if she'd gotten too attached to someone beneath her level. It would have been easy to believe the story everyone else believed. To protect herself. To let Marcus become another nameless casualty in the tower's endless appetite for blame. Instead, she called him to the one place in the building that still felt honest to her, the rooftop. The air was colder up there. The city roared below, 1,000 tiny lights blinking like restless thoughts. Marcus stood with his hands in his pockets, shoulders tight, waiting for the sentence he thought was coming. "They're saying you did this," Elena said quietly, no title, no distance, just his name and the accusation hanging between them. He didn't defend himself with jargon or excuses. He spoke like a man who had already lost too much to beg for what was left. "I double-checked every line," he said. "Someone wanted it to look like I didn't." She studied his face in the harsh rooftop light, the steady gaze, the hurt he wasn't hiding, the tired dignity of a man used to being doubted. And for the first time, Elena realized that trusting him meant risking more than a spreadsheet. It meant choosing one honest voice over an entire chorus of convenient lies. They stood shoulder to shoulder by the ledge, coffee steaming in their hands as the wind tried to steal the warmth away. In that stolen pocket of time, walls began to crumble, not just around her but around them both. But the higher the stakes climbed, the louder fear became. When Elena's ex-partner resurfaced with leaked internal emails and twisted versions of the truth, the board didn't ask for explanations. They demanded sacrifices. Headlines hinted at chaos inside her empire. Anonymous sources painted a picture of a CEO losing control. And in every shadow of that story, one simple solution was offered: cut loose the man at the bottom of the ladder. In the storm of calls, lawyers, and threats, Elena felt herself slipping back into old survival patterns. Trust no one. Show no weakness. Protect the throne at all costs. So when Marcus walked into her office that afternoon, folder in hand, evidence that someone else had tampered with the system, the words she spoke were not the ones her heart wanted. "You're suspended," she said, voice flat, eyes fixed on a spot just past his shoulder. Effective immediately. The silence that followed was worse than any shouting. Marcus didn't drop the folder. He didn't argue or beg or remind her of late nights on the 50th floor or rooftop coffees, or the stories they'd shared when the building slept. He looked at her the way he had looked at that beach photo the first day, searching for the person behind the position. And for a moment he couldn't find her. "Tell me something," Elena said suddenly, the crack finally breaking through her controlled tone. "If I lose all of this, if the board takes everything, am I anything without it? Am I more than this throne?" Marcus's reply was simple, stripped of all the fear and noise around them. "You're human," he said quietly. "That's enough." He turned and walked toward the door, each step pulling the air out of the room. For the first time since she built her empire, Elena Voss felt what it meant to sit on top of the world and still feel completely, utterly alone. In the days after Marcus walked away, the building felt different. The system still hummed. The screen still glowed. But for Elena Voss, something vital had gone silent. The more she tried to bury herself in crisis control, the clearer the truth became. The leak hadn't stopped when Marcus left. The errors kept appearing in places he had never touched. And every new glitch was another piece of proof he had never been the problem. When the board gathered to demand another sacrifice, Elena finally chose a different kind of power. In a room full of polished shoes and sharpened smiles, she stood at the head of the table and refused to bend. "There will be no more scapegoats," she said, eyes steady. "If we are broken, it is not because of the man who told me the truth. It is because we built a company that punished honesty and rewarded fear." Some faces hardened. Some shifted uncomfortably. But for the first time she did not measure her worth by their approval. Later that night, the sky opened over the city. Rain hammered the glass of her office, turning the view into a blur of silver streaks. On impulse, Elena left the tower. No driver, no umbrella, no entourage, just a woman in a soaked suit running through the storm toward a small apartment complex across town. When Marcus opened the door, rainwater pooled at her feet. Her perfectly tailored jacket clung to her shoulders, hair plastered to her face, eyes brighter than he had ever seen them. "I was wrong," she said, breathless. "About you. About me. About what any of this is supposed to mean." Before he could reply, thunder rolled overhead, shaking the thin walls. Jaden peeked from the hallway, wide-eyed, clutching a sketchbook to his chest. Marcus stepped forward, closing the distance the way he had never dared when titles stood between them. He pulled her into a raw, shaking embrace, rain soaking into his worn t-shirt. In his arms, Elena felt smaller than her legend and more herself than she had in years. "You're not your throne," he whispered against her hair. "You never were." And for the first time she let herself believe him. Redemption did not arrive with fireworks. It came in smaller, quieter victories, the kind that stitched a life back together one thread at a time. The investigation finally named the true saboteur, a bitter executive clinging to old power. Marcus's record was cleared, not in a footnote, but in a company-wide announcement Elena insisted on writing herself. When Marcus returned to the building, it wasn't to his old, forgotten corner. It was to a new role, one he had never imagined for himself. Leading a team to protect the systems he once simply maintained, with a voice that could no longer be ignored. At home healing looked different. One afternoon, Jaden sat at the kitchen table with colored pencils scattered everywhere. He glanced up at Elena, who was still getting used to being in a space without glass walls and security badges. "Close your eyes," he told her. When she opened them, a drawing waited in his small, ink-smudged hands. A wide stretch of sand, a bright horizon, a woman laughing as waves chased her feet, and beside her, a man and a boy, all three figures holding hands. "It's your happy place," Jaden said shyly. "But I thought you shouldn't be there alone." Elena blinked hard as the paper blurred. She had built an empire and bought a dozen houses, but no one had ever drawn her a home before. That night, the three of them shared a simple dinner in Marcus's apartment. Cheap plates, soft laughter, takeout containers shoved aside to make room for elbows and inside jokes. At the table there were no job titles. No board votes. No thrones to defend. Just a father, a son, and a woman learning what it meant to be wanted for something other than what she could build or control. In the end, the beach was not a photograph on a locked screen. It was a promise they kept to themselves. Months later, long after the headlines had moved on and the board had found new battles to wage, Elena kept one quiet appointment that didn't appear on any calendar. At the edge of a small, windswept shore far from the city, the sun began to rise. The sky bled from indigo to gold, waves breathing in and out like the world's oldest secret. Marcus walked beside her, hands tucked in his jacket pockets, shoes damp with sand. Every few steps, his fingers brushed against hers, testing the fragile space between them. She didn't pull away. Behind them, Jaden's laughter carried over the crash of the tide as he chased the surf with a stick, drawing crooked castles that vanished with each wave. For a long time they didn't talk about work or deals, or the tower that had once defined them. They talked about nothing and everything, about favorite songs and childhood fears, and the strange relief of no longer needing to be larger than life to feel alive. The woman from the old photo was not a ghost anymore. She was here, in the chill of the morning air, in bare feet sinking into cold sand, in the way she leaned into the man beside her without needing permission. As the sun finally broke over the horizon, Marcus laced his fingers through hers, not as a rescue but as a choice. Side by side they faced the light. In seeing each other they found themselves. And for once that was more than enough.